The Zephyrian diplomatic vessel hung in the void like a silver teardrop, its crystalline hull reflecting the distant stars. Ambassador Kelthrix adjusted his ceremonial robes, his three eyes focused on the view screen displaying the small blue planet below. Earth, the newest species to be considered for Galactic Council membership. They are primitive, his aide chirped, mandibles clicking with amusement. Their fastest vessels barely achieve 0.3 light speed. Their weapons are crude projectiles and directed energy. This will be a simple integration. Kelthrix wasn't so certain. The humans had requested this meeting at specific coordinates far from their homeworld. That showed either wisdom or cunning, perhaps both. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. A human face appeared on screen, a woman with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, her brown eyes sharp and calculating. "Captain Jessica Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force." "Ambassador Kelthrix," she said, her translator rendering the words in perfect galactic standard. "Welcome to Sol System. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us regarding Earth's petition for Council membership." "Captain Morrison," Kelthrix replied, inclining his head, "we are pleased to begin diplomatic relations. The Council has reviewed your species application and finds you adequate for provisional membership, provided you accept our terms." Jessica's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "And those terms would be?" "Standard protocol," Kelthrix said smoothly. "Surrender of all military vessels capable of faster-than-light travel. Limitation of defensive forces to system patrol only. Integration into the Council's peacekeeping armada. Complete disarmament of what you call weapons of mass destruction." "I see." Jessica folded her hands on her desk. "And if we decline these terms?" Kelthrix allowed himself a thin smile. "Then Earth remains unprotected, unrecognized, prey to any species that wishes to claim your resources. The galaxy is not kind to the isolated, Captain. Give us 1 hour to confer with our command," Jessica said. "We'll transmit our response." The screen went dark. Kelthrix settled back, satisfied. It always went this way. The new species postured, delayed, then accepted reality. The Council had maintained peace for 3,000 cycles through this very system. Overwhelming force presented as benevolent protection. None refused. 58 minutes later, proximity alarm screamed. "What is that?" Kelthrix demanded, lurching toward the view screen. Space itself seemed to tear open. A swirling vortex of blue and white energy expanded like a wound in reality, growing larger, impossibly large. The Zephyrian crew stared in horror as something emerged. It was a ship. But calling it merely a ship was like calling a supernova merely bright. The vessel was angular and brutal, all hard edges and weapon emplacements. Its hull was the color of deep space itself, seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. It stretched over 8 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with rail cannons the size of buildings, missile pods that could house entire fighter squadrons, and energy projectors that pulsed with barely contained power. Titan-class warship UED's Prometheus, the human named James Chen announced over the comm channel, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Admiral James Chen commanding. Ambassador, I believe you wanted Earth's response to your terms." Kelthrix couldn't speak. His three eyes were locked on the sensor readings scrolling across his console. The power output alone exceeded their entire fleet's combined capacity by a factor of 20. The weapons systems, they defied classification, technology the Council had never encountered. "Impossible," his aide whispered. "They were supposed to be primitive." "Our intelligence said, your intelligence was based on what we allowed you to see," Jessica's voice cut in. She appeared on screen again, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her, command center personnel worked at stations displaying tactical information that made Kelthrix's blood run cold. The Council's surveillance drones are quite easy to detect once you know what to look for. "We've been aware of them for 3 years. Admiral Chen's voice took over. "We studied your diplomatic missions to 17 other species, Ambassador. We watched how you offered membership, then used the threat of isolation to force disarmament, how you positioned your peacekeeping armada to enforce compliance, how species that refused simply disappeared from Council records." The Prometheus drifted closer, its shadow falling across the diplomatic vessel like a predator looming over prey. "Humans have a saying," Jessica continued. "Speak softly and carry a big stick. We've been speaking very softly, Ambassador, but we wanted to make sure you saw the stick before we continued our conversation." Kelthrix found his voice. You would threaten Council diplomats? Start a war? Threaten? James's laugh was cold. No, Ambassador. We're establishing context. You see, Earth will not be disarming. We will not be surrendering our defensive capabilities. We will not be integrated into your enforcement apparatus. Then the Council will do nothing, Jessica interrupted, because we've done our homework. Your peacekeeping armada's flagship is 2 kilometers long and considered the pinnacle of Council military technology. The Prometheus is one of 12 Titan-class vessels currently operational, with 20 more under construction. We've achieved this while you believed we were still struggling with basic FTL theory. Additionally, James added, we've shared technical specifications with the 17 species you've protected over the past century. They're very interested in discussing new defensive arrangements, ones that don't require submission. Kelthrick slumped in his chair. The entire structure of Council power, 3 millennia of carefully maintained dominance, crumbling in a single conversation. So here's Earth's counter-proposal, Jessica said, her voice taking on a diplomatic tone that somehow felt more dangerous than threats. We join the Council as full, equal members. We retain complete military autonomy, and we work together to reform the Council into an actual alliance. Not a protection racket disguised as one. The Council will never agree, Kelthrick's managed. James Chen smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. They will when they see the Prometheus and her 11 sisters. We've transmitted the coordinates for a demonstration. Front row seats for your leadership. We'll be testing our new quantum disruptor cannons on some uninhabited asteroids in the Kepler 4042 system. Should be quite the show. The transmission ended. Kelthrick sat in silence, staring at the massive warship that hung in space like humanity's declaration of intent. Behind him, his crew worked frantically to compile reports, calculate power outputs, assess threat levels. But he already knew the conclusion. Earth hadn't just arrived at the galactic stage. They'd kicked down the door, flipped over the table, and rewritten the rules, and the Council would have to accept it, because humanity hadn't asked for permission. They'd simply shown the galaxy what happened when you assumed the new neighbors were weak. The age of Council dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun, ND.